He's 0 to 1 Notes on Startups or How to Build the Future by Peter Thiel with Blake Masters. Ooh, cool one here. This is like a book I sort of found just kind of looking around for stuff to look and just entrepreneurial things and growing businesses. And it was cool because like this is the guy, the guy who wrote it. One of the co-founders of PayPal, big investor in Facebook, super, successful guy in tech startups and early interest in that space. So like he's got a really good background in that space, and he does a phenomenal job in this book about identifying and then teaching the underlying principles behind the success in that industry and that business, and using that and applying that knowledge in other startups. So really teaching people how to grow their businesses or startups and the principles and fundamentals to put into your business so that it has the best chance of success in the long run. Really cool part there, and using that to build really a better business at the beginning so that as you grow, you have a strong foundation and good fundamentals and hopefully, find very good success. I think some of the main takeaways from it are to really identify exactly where you want to be in the marketplace, and then do what you want to do better than anybody else and completely saturate your place in the market rather than trying to get 1% of maybe a really big market. So he talks some examples with Google, right? Like instead of trying to be a new player in the market and go from 1 to N, copying an existing player, you could create a whole new industry by going from 0 to 1. So you can completely control the entire industry you create, or be a massive player in it, rather than coming and joining an industry that already exists and just owning a small part of it and having to compete. And he talks a lot about monopolies and how companies can grow to realize maximum profits and benefits in society while growing exponentially using monopoly-like profits and using tactics to avoid competition. So it's pretty interesting stuff, especially considering like history in America with like Taft-Hartley and like looking at like regulation. It was really cool to see how he put these business practices in play and looked at real-world examples of how companies grew and how they frame themselves as a value proposition in the marketplace to create a very, very unique industry where they could dominate it while still being socially acceptable in business practices. Very, very cool part. I really liked the book because there were a lot of modern examples in the book. So like he looks at companies like Tumblr or other growing entrepreneurs, or Jobs, Gates, etc. And he breaks down like how they were positioned in the marketplace, and he looks exactly at how the fundamentals that he describes and elaborates on with market and timing and economic opportunity. He uses that as a way to frame success and really teach exactly what to look for and how to build the best possible outcome or company that you can by using really strong principles for going from a market where there's just nothing in your space to a place where all of a sudden you're the biggest player, you're the preeminent player in the space. So very cool, applicable examples and lessons to learn there. I think one of the most memorable scenes in the book was pretty interesting. He's talking a lot about, one thing he does really well is cover economic principles and sort of like how governments and economies work. And he looks a lot at financial markets too. So understanding really exactly how companies bring value and make cash in the marketplace. And he's talking in one spot about how people aren't necessarily lucky, but they just work, or they go hard and they get what needs to get done so that they can have the best success in their field of business. And one cool thing he sort of looks at in one of the earlier chapters is looking at, definite and indefinite optimism and pessimism, and he goes kind of historically into that aspect of it. But there was one part that really stood out, and that's when he was talking about college and how colleges were giving kids an extremely, or school, in general, a very, very diverse education, to the extent that, all the classes are the same length, even though they're on such broad topics. And he talks about how kids are being set on a track to have a very, very colorful resume and a very, very diverse personality and background, but how that might not necessarily be the best if you want to go from 0 to 1 in one very, very specific industry and one very specific project. If you want to go and focus exclusively on that one thing, then he talks about how having such a diversified view might be favored really in some, employment atmospheres or career opportunities. But if you want to create a monopoly of one and really create the most possible value for your company or your startup, right, that you just need to focus and just crush whatever the one thing is that you want to do, or the very small number of things that you want to do well, and get other people, bring together a team, and collaborate together to get other aspects that you might not necessarily be perfect at. Very cool place. Some of the overall themes from the book, a lot of it is like business development, and I think you can apply it to yourself too, like looking at how you invest your time or your money in educational programs or content. Like if you're watching videos like this, right, like learning about literature that can really have a profound impact on your life, it's really cool to see and break down, how do the most successful people, as defined by their monetary value or the value that they bring into the marketplace, how do they search for themselves and find ways to enact value in the marketplace through, without competition or building new industries, or really going from 0 to 1 instead of just 1 to n where you're adding value. And it's all in the first couple chapters where he talks about that, but it was really, really cool because you can look at that and think like, Ethernet cable manufacturing company, right? Something I started a couple months ago. We got guys, we come together, we just make hundreds and hundreds of Ethernet cables. We ship them to Amazon and they just sell them on Amazon. We're just like another person who makes Ethernet cables. And it was really interesting to read this and then think, ooh, okay, maybe this is just going from 1 to n instead of 0 to 1, so it's not a value-adding business. We were just kind of like in a commodity business. We weren't doing anything differently. So taking insights of maybe that's not a sustainable business practice to the extent that you're not going to have a huge impact on the marketplace that you might want. So if you're like participating in any business venture, like, whatsoever, I think it's a great book to read to understand your value proposition and to really fortify the belief that, hey, this is something that should be done, that needs to be done, that we will do in the marketplace. I think this is a tremendous book for anyone in a startup scene, working with startup companies or looking at bringing a new idea into the marketplace that just doesn't exist right now. And if you want to create a new product, service, or industry, whatever it is, or if you just have the idea of, hey, maybe this would be a cool business, or maybe this could have a big impact and bring a lot of value to people in my life and help them get to where they want to be, wherever, whatever industry that's in. It's a great book to identify and develop your personal techniques and strategic ways to get to preeminence in any industry that you want to either join or just invent or bring to market. So really, really cool stuff. A lot of influence from the tech bubble and early internet space companies, and I think those are some just phenomenal places to learn from. He talks a lot at the beginning about the bubble. It's really interesting stuff. If you're into finances, that's really cool too. About business growth and development, it's killer. Really good one by Peter Thiel. Yeah, so thanks guys, have a good one.